Hello, world.
Hi.
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 Hello.
Hi.
It's like I've forgotten how to say hello. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Life with Caca. I'm your host and fellow producer, Carolina Groppa. It's been a minute, and I have missed you all. I hope you have missed me as well. As I've mentioned on social media, it's been a bit of a busy season for me with this documentary that I'm producing on women in comedy, which is so cool. I can't wait for you guys to see it. But don't you worry, I did sneak away and find time to sit with the legend herself, Stephanie Allain. You guys, this woman has produced some of my favorite movies: Hustle and Flow, Boys in the Hood, Dear White People. I just can't even, honestly. And even though, as you'll hear from the audio, I was battling a 2-week-long sinus infection, it was worth every moment I got to spend with her. Like, I kind of want to be her when I grow up. She is raw, she is real, she is so authentically herself. We talk about motherhood, we talk about how John Singleton helped her rediscover her Blackness, and how she took a risk and sold her house to finance Hustle and Flow. Her passion and her hustle got me thinking, how far would I go for my dream? Could I ever bring myself to take a similar risk? And how far would you go for yours? I'm looking at you, listeners in Mexico and Australia. I see you. Hit me up on Instagram at Carolina Groppa and tell me, how far would you go for your dream? Well, enough of me babbling. Let's dig in and hear from Miss Stephanie Allain. I just want to say this is like a momentous occasion for me personally to be sitting with you in your house having this conversation. So thank you for welcoming me into your space. It's so personal.
Thank you for coming.
Of course. And I was telling you a little bit off mic about just me and the show and my goal with the show, my intention with this show. And like, I really want Life with Caca to be a place where the guests that I have on can feel comfortable and safe to talk about some stuff that isn't necessarily the fun parts of what we do, the sexy parts of what we do as producers, as women who have found...
Which parts are sexy?
I don't know. But people think it's real sexy. I mean, when you're taking a photo on a red carpet or you're at Sundance,
that's the sexy part.
But that's all people see, right? Like, I have this metaphor I've been using lately, which about this idea of a garden, and everybody comes into your life and they're seeing your garden in full bloom and they think it's always like that, and nobody's seeing the years of work and the weeds you've had to pull and the years where there was no blooms, you know. And
my garden out there.
I know you have a beautiful garden. I get to look at it.
Vegetables, which teaches you a lot about producing.
In what way?
Well, you have to plant the seeds, you have to tend it, you have to nurture it, you can't walk away for too long, you have to come back and, test the soil, make sure that things are good and right for the right kind of plant.
Yeah.
And then you have to have a lot of patience because it takes time.
Yeah.
And then you have to know when to pluck it from the vine.
So how do you know? How do you personally
know? A lot of trial
know?
and error. That's how you know. Yeah. You just do it.
Just do it. Well, I guess on that note, will you define a producer for me?
Yeah. Well, I guess a producer is someone who produces content for film and television or whatever else medium there is.
But what is producing in the true form of the word?
Well, it's a lot like growing vegetables. It's about, I think first, for me, it's about the material. The work, the script, the book, the idea, whatever that thing is, and really connecting to that. Not as a commodity or something to be traded, but because you love it and because you want to see it grow and because you want to see it mature into what it can be, which is something, it's crazy, something that can last forever that you can share with the world.
Yeah. Do you feel like all of the projects you've been fortunate enough to work on in your career fit that description?
Well, let's see, when you say work on, I mean...
Or produce, support.
Well,
I know you've kind of had a hand in some things that...
I think I would say that. Absolutely. I would say that. And but that's no accident because you have to care about the thing to make it so, to make it reality. So it's hard to sort of like trip over and produce something. You know what I mean? It just doesn't happen that way.
Yeah. Okay, so take me back a little bit. anybody who can Google you can kind of read through your bio real quick and see like all the amazing things you've done and sort of the trajectory of your career. But for the listeners, will you just catch us up on how you got to be here in this couch in this moment succinctly?
Okay, let's see. Well, what's my timeline? Because then I can.
To when you started, and I really would love to know how you discovered this business.
I've always loved to read. That's where it comes from. I just love to read. I read voraciously. I wrote. I was just love stories. And then I made the connection between stories, between the book and the page and the screen with 2 books, The Godfather and The Exorcist. And there was something that I didn't even know what it was. I didn't even know how you got from there to there. But I knew that there was a connection. And then I studied English, and I dropped out at USC, and I moved to Hawaii, and I fell in love. And then I decided I had to be a writer because that's the thing that I identified as. So I went to Europe. I went to Madrid for a little bit, and then I went to UC Santa Cruz, which had at the time, and this is in the 80s, an incredible writing program. George Hitchcock and just amazing, talented writers. All those sort of older beat poets, Ferlinghetti, all those guys were still around up in there. And so I was a poetry major, and but I was also a dancer, and I spent those years just dancing and reading and making movies because my first husband asked me to be in his movie in the co-ed naked dance dressing room. So I was just in the arts. That's what I lived for. And then I graduated, and I followed my dance teacher, Donald Byrd, to CalArts to dance. And oh my God, it's so beautiful. Do you dance?
Yes, I used to dance when I was younger. It's the best.
It's the best.
It's the best.
It's the best. And so I'm there with all these kids because I'm older because I've graduated from college now.
Yeah.
And these kids are...
Well, how old were you at this point?
Okay, so probably 21, 2.
Okay, so still a baby.
I'm a baby.
Yeah.
But I knew that maybe I was 23. I knew that I wanted to make money.
And a career in dance was not going to get that.
I knew that because I saw kids much better than me go to New York and make it. And making it at that time was $200 a week or something. I was like, okay, check, please. I need to do something else.
Yeah.
But I didn't know what. I still didn't know what. I didn't even know the jobs existed that eventually got me here.
Did that not knowing at that time scare you?
Oh, yeah, I was petrified.
Okay.
I was petrified. I was like, I dropped out of there because I didn't have enough money. I guess my dad was like, I'm not paying for you to go to dance school. So that's okay. I moved to San Francisco. I wrote for the ballet magazine. I danced, whatever. And then I got pregnant.
At 23.
Yes. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have this baby. I had nothing. I didn't have a place to live. My boyfriend was like, was younger. He was 20. He was like, are you kidding me? And I was like, no, I'm not. I'm going to have this baby. I moved back into the room that I grew up in at my mother's house. And I took a job working for my dad, billing Medicare. And I think around then I did hear about a job called reading. I thought, that's perfect. I'm a reader.
I like reading. Yeah.
I love reading.
Yeah.
What else do you have to do? You have to write a little
coverage
book report.
Yeah. Book
Perfect.
report. It is a book report. Yeah.
So, but nobody would hire me. I'm pregnant. Now I'm like pregnant. I'm this black chick. I'm pregnant. I don't know anybody in the business. My boyfriend, father of my eventually 2 children, and now ex-husband, was the only connection I had in the business. And he wasn't really in the business, but he was Jewish from the Valley, and he knew a lot of people in the business. And so there was one guy who knew one guy, and I don't know, eventually what happened was I got a job at CAA reading books. I got a job reading books, and I had the baby. That was my entrance into the business, you know. It was 3 days a week in Century City, sitting in it was so old fashioned. This is like, I think about it now, it's kind of like Mad Men. Like it was a group of readers in like a lounge area, and we were all just sitting there reading our books. And then when you finished, you got up and you went to the typing room and you sat down on a typewriter and you just rolled in your paper and typed up what the story was, and then you typed up your recommendation, whether you thought it was a movie or not. And I thought that was the easiest job in the world. Oh, my God. But then I saw these agents, and I was like, oh, so what's going on here? Mike Ovitz was running the joint. And even though, you know, they kept the readers on a different floor. It's very
segregated.
It's very segregated. But anyway, reading was easy and fun. And by then, I heard that you could actually get a real job reading at studios. And that job is story analyst. And I just got the paper for the, you know, I heard about it. I did some research. It wasn't like that then. I had to make some calls. And you had to get into the union to get that job. You had to take a test, and you had to pass the test, and somebody had to die on the roster for you to get the job. And that's what happened. And I got the job.
So you got the job. Were you ever like, okay, I'm here, I have this job, I'm still living at home, I'm assuming at this point?
By the way, once I decided I was having this baby and I was like in my old room for a month or two, I was like, okay, I got to get out of here.
Yeah.
So I rented an apartment. I had a studio apartment on 4th in Detroit, right over here. And right around, because that's where I grew up, right around the corner from my mom. And my boyfriend had like run away, but he came back. And we had the baby, and he was also in the business. He was the location manager at the time. And yeah, we were just raising this kid, and I was just sort of in this world of the executive suite, basically, which is what it was. I didn't really even know what it was, but that's what it was. And the next step up from reader was creative exec in that paradigm. So, but the truth is that, you know, my mother lived around the corner. Thank God. I never even moved far away from her. This is as far as I've ever lived from her, right here in the valley. Without her, I don't know how I could have done it.
Yeah.
Because my boyfriend turned husband, we married when my son was 3. And we were together for 10 years and had another son 10 years later. And he's my bestie. I love him. He lives down the street. He got married here with his new wife.
Oh, that's awesome.
But, you know, what people don't see, because that's what you started this with, is, I mean, first of all, I had a child before I really had a job in the business. And so that set me apart in so many ways, because I couldn't really, first of all, I was a woman, I was a Black woman, and I had a child.
Trifecta.
You know, and so I wasn't part of the boys club. I wasn't part of the Jewish club necessarily, even though I did have entree because of my husband, frankly. But there was just a lot of, you know, day to day, how's this going to work? You know what I mean? Like, who's picking him up? What's happening? What's the food? How's it gonna work? Who's giving him a bath? I have to go to this other thing. You know, can you keep? It was a lot of negotiating childcare, and you know, I really messed it up the first time because I spent way too much time working, and and my oldest son, who is an actor, is a born actor, was acting out, you know, he was completely acting out. And I basically had to stop the sort of social component, trying to fit in, because as we know in this business, it's a social business. You have to be there. You have to be at those places. You have to be part of that. That's how, and it still works that way.
Yeah.
You know?
How do you keep up with that then? Like, especially at that time, you have a young kid, you're
well, like I said, I had my mother.
You have your mom, yeah.
I married him. I said I had Mitch, and I paid for help. You know, I had Yolanda who came every day and helped. Like you can't do it alone.
Yeah,
you know.
And so obviously having that support is what helped you sort of create the template for you to build on to the places that you were to get to eventually in your career.
Oh yeah, I couldn't have done it. Oh, I don't know. Well, yeah, I would have been a really shitty mom. Yeah, you need that help. You need that help.
Yeah. Okay, so then you see this path and you're like an executive path. That's the path I want to go down.
That's what they say. Good. You know, you can leave the story department and go the first rung of this ladder. And by then, the truth is I'd been brought under the wing of Amy Pascal. And her recognizing my coverage and my ability to write notes, and she taught me how to write notes, and being in those rooms and sitting there watching her, that's really how I learned to go to that next level.
Yeah.
And then, you know, this is the late 80s. By then, she leaves Fox. She goes to Columbia with Dawn Steele. And this was the era of the badass bitches, I have to say.
I know.
Like, you know, it was very, like Armani suits, padded shoulders,
yes,
pearls, a white tank. There was a uniform.
Yeah.
We all wore it.
Talk a little bit real quick about this idea of mentorship and sisterhood, because I know you've talked a lot about the support that you felt from Amy in your career, but everybody creates this image of what they think a mentor looks like or should be, or when they should get one, or how they get one, or like as if there's some check boxes, you know what I mean, that you go through and you're like, and here's what this mentor needs to be to me. It's almost like a relationship where they're just looking for this perfect partner, this perfect mentor. And I often hear that doesn't really exist. So I'm curious what your perspective is on this idea of mentorship. I'm sure where you are in your career, a lot of people come to you now and they're like, be my mentor. And you're like, that's not how it works, you know?
Well, all I can say is that without that type of mentorship, it would be really hard to figure out how to do things, because you have to have that firsthand knowledge to you have to witness it, you know? But you can have a mentor as somebody you don't even know. You know, you can have a mentor, somebody that you study, that you look toward, that you pattern your moves after. You can have a mentor who is a daily, you know, contact, or you can have a mentor who you talk to 4 times a year. It is like a relationship, and all relationships are different. You know what I mean? People do always come and say, can you mentor me? And I always say to them, you know, I mentor through these programs like the Academy, the Producers Guild, the Writers Guild, the Women in Film, this and that, because at this point, it's you can imagine I would be mentoring the world, and I love teaching and I love doing it, but I'm still working, you know.
Right. And you only have so much time. Yeah.
You only have so much time. I mean, how many movies, how many TV shows are you going to make in your lifetime?
Me personally?
Yeah.
As many as I can before I go. I mean,
exactly. But is that like 100?
I don't think so.
I know. So that's what I'm saying. We got to keep busy.
Right. Yeah. It's this idea of prioritizing and boundaries is so important. And we talk about it a lot, especially as women who do have these other shades to who we are and to our identity, and letting people in. And it's actually part of why I started the show. Is I'm still a very young up and coming producer, but I'm at a place in my career where I've done some stuff that's quite visible. So I get a lot of people hitting me up, wanting to pick my brain over coffee, wanting my advice and my support.
Need your brain.
Exactly. And I'm like, I would love to, but I can only give so many of those a month, a year, because I need to have time for these other things I'm doing in my life. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this podcast and I'm going to have these conversations, and then you can listen to it on your own time. And hopefully the sort of guidance is similar, and I can be a conduit to people like yourself, those people who are starting out and are a bit, younger in their journey may not ever have access to that, or feel like they don't, and they feel so far removed. And I'm trying to take what's all the way over there and just bring it a little bit more into focus to show the realities that it's all possible. It's just the step by step, brick by brick is how you build a bridge to where you're going, So, but I interrupted your story. So Amy Pascal, she mentored you. She really made an impact on where you were going. And when you saw that this was a path you wanted to take, being an executive.
Yeah, because, well, actually, I had to step down financially because at the time I was making really good money as a story analyst because it's a union job. Then you had to step down to take the it was like, I don't know, I was making $75,000, which is in that time, wow, I was okay. I'm okay. And then I had to go down to 50 to take that next level.
On a salary probably, right? With no overtime?
On a salary with no overtime, exactly. Yeah. And I remember people like, well, why would you do that? That's okay. Again, choices that you make when you can see where you want to be.
Yeah.
So then I'm in the big house now, I'm sitting at the table. I'm at the weekend reads. I'm at, the meetings, and I got a real sense of territory and fear and backbiting and the real deal.
And what was that like when you got there? Is it what you thought it would be?
No,
was it worse?
Yes, because part of the problem is that at the time the studio, unbeknownst to probably at least me, was undergoing an auction for sale. And so there was no real money flowing through the coffers to make things. And so it was sort of a development situation where you were just looking for things and you would spend money, but nobody was freeing up any money. Okay. And so there was a lot of tension in the room. There's a lot of tension. And then it was the merger of, Peter Guber's company came in, and that, when John and Peter came in, and there was Don had got fired, I think. And then it was very amorphous. We were on this other lot in Burbank with Warner Brothers. Yep. And all I was thinking about truly is, reading, because that's what my specialty was. And I quickly understood that, he who reads the most, she who reads the most reads, has the last laugh. So basically I would read everything because I got caught one time, in Weekend Read, you have your names, your initials behind you're at a table. Everybody brings stuff to the table they want on the Weekend Read. But you can't read everything on the Weekend Read. So you get assigned. 5 people read this, 3 people read that, blah, blah, blah. And one day, Dawn asked me my opinion about something, and I was like, my initial wasn't there. I don't know what you're talking about. That wasn't me. And she kind of went off on me. And I sort of, black girl, went off on her. And people were like, oh, it was kind of a moment. And then she looked at me like, oh, okay, right. Your name wasn't on there. I said, yeah, that's right. And then I read everything. And I made a point of telling people I read everything by commenting on everything, even if my name wasn't there.
How did you find the time to read everything and still be a mother?
Well, I was a reader.
How fast can you read? You must be like.
I would have to read like 8.
Even stuff you don't, but like stuff you don't like. Sometimes it's such a dry
slap. You do learn to sort of speed read through things that
are not
you just need to know the base. Like once I'm not recommending this, then you can check in and see what happens. You know what I mean?
Okay, that makes more sense. Sometimes I get sent scripts. I'm like, oof, it takes me like a month just to get through it.
Then don't read it.
I know.
That means you shouldn't read it.
I know, but I'm like, I want to give notes or give feedback. It's young people, and I'm like, I just
tell them to put it on Blacklist for $25 and get their coverage.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do starting,
because we can't do that.
Can't do it at all. Yeah,
but it was very impressive, I must say, because nobody else was doing it.
Yeah. Well, it set the tone for, who you are, obviously, your work ethic.
It
So
did.
toot your own horn, please, because
Toot.
you should.
And then at that same time, I was replacing myself in the story department because, of course, I was the only Black person there. And I met John
Singleton, yes, which
and
I love.
That really
that story.
changed my life. Like
Yeah.
just vividly recall him walking into my office.
Yeah, before you knew.
Oh, before I knew anything.
Yeah, you just remembered this guy walking up,
I
all
just
hot,
remember
full of
this
dreams,
guy.
full of dreams.
Yeah, all swag, all. Yeah, that did it. And then I read that script, and then I was like, aha, this is it. This is why I'm here.
Yeah.
Clearly.
I rewatched Boys in the Hood recently to prepare for this, and I was like crying hysterically. And I watched it when I was younger, and I was like, oh, that was a good movie. But now, as an older woman, you know, with different perspectives in the world, like the it just breaks your heart as like a future mother, you know.
It's
just
an all-ager. It's an all-age movie.
oof, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful movie. Yeah. Just what a vision. So young to have had that. To have had that idea, to get it on paper at that time, and then to all the stars to align, right?
Beautifully on paper. Like
Beautifully
the
on
script
paper. But then he also got to make it, right? He could have been like, well, studio's going to do this, but you can't direct. Like it could have been,
and that's
so many
really
things.
how I learned to produce on Boys in the Hood.
Yeah.
Because he was so specific and so gangster straight about it that I had to fall in line and protect it. And that's how I understood that, you know, the voice of the artist, the voice of the creator, the voice of the director is so much better than a table full of knuckleheads giving comments, you know, which is usually how most movies are made.
Right.
And
which is, you said this in another interview, which you said, you know, when you see a project that feels all over the place, it's because, there's like 80 voices in the room. There's not one singular vision. And it's why you love working with writer directors.
That's right.
Because there is a vision.
There is
a
vision.
And that's important. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So then John changes your life.
John changed my life.
Changed everything.
Changed everything. Everything. In so many ways. I mean, in a way, which I don't think I've ever really said, it's like John reintroduced Blackness into my life.
How so?
Because, you know, I'm from New Orleans. My whole family's from New Orleans. We're Creole. So, you know, that means that you're raised to really believe that you're special. You're white and you're Black. You know, you're European and you're Native American. You're African and you're, you know. So that's already a head trip. But then I was raised in LA at LACMA, near LACMA, in the 60s, 70s, and predominantly white. You know, all the schools I went to, except for St. Mary's, was more Black than I'd been accustomed to, and all my friends were Black, and my family, but in Hollywood, it was mostly white, and my husband was white. You know what I'm saying? And so then this Blackness just showed up and reminded me that I was Black. It was amazing. It was amazing because I was like, oh my God, of course I'm Black.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, you know, I made this movie, Something New, a few years ago about, Sanaa Lathan falls in love with Simon Baker. And, you know, when you fall in love with somebody, you don't really see their skin color. After a while, you don't see their skin color. It's just who they are. But because we live in a racist America, and because we're all indoctrinated with prejudice and with racism, it becomes apparent that you'll never understand me in a way that a Black person can. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was very, very profound. And I, you know, just invested everything in it because clearly there was not enough representation of these stories, you know, and they were just as powerful, if not more, because I think they crack open your heart. I think they make you see things from a different perspective as much as you can.
Right. And that is the power of film.
That's
Otherwise,
what
are we doing, you know?
Exactly. Yes. And somebody, I was just listening to somebody said, the power of film is stronger than the power of dialogue. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, it's a visual story. Yeah. You can see it, you can experience it in the safety of a theater or in your home, and you can be immersed in a world that you will never know otherwise. You know, I interviewed somebody who ran production at Warner Brothers for many years, and he said that the greatest American export we have are our stories. The way that cinema started, and yes, of course, there's everything that happened in Europe, but we have always had our finger on the pulse, and everywhere else in the world, it's changing a little bit, but it still follows that.
We're seeing serious damage, though, on the world stage right now. I mean, my lovely healer, TJ, is from South Korea, and he was like, he told me today, he said, I think there's more welfare in Korea than there is here. You know, there's more concern about the poor and the disenfranchised. Like, how do we become that? Anyway, we digress. I have so many questions for you. Like, I don't even know. So, but John Singleton, and how I'm like checking off my list of the millions of things to talk to you about. But touching back upon this idea of being a young mother and sustaining a career at the beginning of your career, you were so young. Like, how did you manage that? Did you have your moments where you were like, I can't do this. This isn't worth it. Being a mother is more important to me than my professional identity. Did those identities ever conflict? Well, I was going to say no, but then, no, I told you there was a moment when my son was 8 when I walked into his room and there was water on the floor. And I was like, that's weird. It didn't rain. What is that? And I got down on it. I smelled it. I was like, it's piss. And he just stood there looking at me with these like eyes. And I was like, you pissed on the floor. I've got to clean it up, you know? And he was like, nah. And he ran out of the house. He was naked too. And he ran out of the house. And I had just gotten out of the shower and I had my robe and I was running down the hall because he was running on the street now like crazy. And I ran and I grabbed him and I just held him and I was like, oh my God, he's pissed off, you know, obviously. And then it was like that. I just decided I'm not doing any, breakfast. I'm not doing any dinner. I will only do lunch. I'll leave in the morning. I come back in the night. Like, that's what you have to do when you have kids. And sure, I had somebody there who'd be waiting for me, but it's like, no, they don't want that. They want you.
They want you. That's
so
what they need, yeah.
I said, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to focus on the work, because it is, like I said, it is a social network.
Yeah.
And I really didn't have and by the way, nobody else had kids either. So, I would bring Wade with me everywhere. He would introduce me around because that's the kind of kid he was. But I had to make a choice. And so I just focused on the work.
Yeah. Was that hard to make that choice?
It wasn't hard because when I saw his face, it wasn't hard. It was not hard. But it made my trafficking in Hollywood harder, I think.
Yeah. But then you still found a way, which I love. You still found a way, And I think that's the part of the journey that people don't see is that you can have all of these presets to your path and then you still can find a way no matter what circumstances you're in. If the want is big enough, right? It's if the want is bigger than the conflict. That's like every story, you find a way to persevere and try all the different things. And so but you never felt like your professional identity was all you had or that it defined you in some way.
I never felt that because I was never that. I was a mother before I was that. So I didn't have that persona.
Do you think if you had kids later, after you had more success, would that have flipped that in your head somehow?
I don't think so, because I'm successful, but I'm not crazy ambitious. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm ambitious for my projects. I'm ambitious for changing the world. I'm ambitious for a lot of things, but I'm not ambitious like I have to make so much money and I have to run a studio. I don't have that in me. You know what I mean? And I saw that because when I stayed at the studio, starting with John, and we made movies, and then I met Robert Rodriguez, and then we made a couple movies, and Darnell Martin, and it was lovely because I literally had my own mini studio inside the big studio.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to deal with anybody's shitty projects. It was just mine. And they were all under such a low budget compared to everybody else that they just let me do. And that was really my training as a producer, just trying to get those voices out. And then I wanted another baby. And then I was like, okay, because that's the thing. I was always like, this is what I do. It's not who I am. It's what I do, but it's not who I am. I don't know how to explain it.
No, I get that. I think I asked that question. It's more of like a personal question because where I'm at in my career, I have not had children. I have not had those benchmarks in life. And so much of my identity, especially because I am an immigrant, right? My parents came to this country when I was young. I was 9 years old. I've had all the hurdles sort of put upon me to get to where I am and to get to be in a place today where I want to work hard and do right by my parents. And I want to persevere and achieve my dreams. And so much of my 20s were focused on that. And all I thought about and all I cared about was my professional identity and making it and getting to those markers I had set for myself. And now that I'm in my 30s, I'm reflecting on what is important to me and the priorities. And sometimes I think because I didn't make that choice when I was younger to have a kid younger and then just figure it out, in a way, it's a little harder now because there's so much momentum that you're like,
how do I stop?
And then if you stop, how do you get back on the roller coaster,
Well, I will tell you this about the roller coaster. You just double dutch yourself back on. Like it keeps going without you, but then you just go back in.
Yeah.
It's not like the door's closed.
Right.
At all. Because most of the same people are still there. Probably moved to different places.
Yeah.
The job's still the same.
Yeah.
Identifying content and shepherding it to its awesome end. And so don't worry about that.
Thank you. I'm working on it. Work in progress. I mean, it is. And that's the thing I think a lot of people who are not inside the business realize that it's such a small industry. And I often wonder why that is because there's so many freaking people in LA, yet you run into the same people who, I don't know if it's because I often heard that it's like, okay, if you take all of the SAG members, only like 10% of them are actually working. So those are the people you keep running into time and time again, right? And I feel like the same can be said for producers and for everybody in this tier. It's small because the people that are actually doing it are a small pool of people.
This is so interesting because it's kind of like Malcolm Gladwell's books. It's obvious, but even at the Academy, at Women in Film, at any of these organizations, there's only a handful of women doing the work, even though there's everybody else there. It's crazy. It's so, and it is the, what do you call it? Type A, go get them, the ones that have that drive and that ambition that are making it happen.
Yep. Time and time again, you'll run up against the same people, which is why I always say, who you are in your professional life should never differ from who you are in your personal life. Your integrity, your authenticity is the only thing about you that is intrinsically yours, right? And if you're going to run into these people time and time again in different levels of your career, be a good person. Be a person who values those things above all else. Because I think there is this myth and misconception about producers that you have to be sort of like cutthroat and you gotta like step on people to get where you're going. And there
Why do people think that?
I don't know. People think that, and that there are those people out there because they have a different agenda. They have a different intention. They're just trying to make the money. They're just trying to make the 18th version of that franchise. I don't know what they're about, but I think it creates this misconception of the realities of the lifestyle of what it takes to be a person who cares so much about something, right? Where it'll take 4 years to get something made,
Right.
which brings me to Hustle and Flow and how that took you guys 4 years to put it all together, if I'm not mistaken. And my next question, which is, in those 4 years, how did you stay motivated and keeping your eye on the prize? Because people can look at the end result and think it all came together so quickly. You had John Singleton, you had all these things,
I had to sell my house.
You sold your house. So like, damn, like talk
I
about
had to sell
that.
my house
That's some real
because
shit,
I couldn't manage the note and keep the dream alive, to be honest. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And also because I am a very, I would say, I follow my gut kind of person. And it was a crazy time in my life. It was between marriages. And I had my 2 sons. And it was pretty wild. But the point was, I figured out that if I woke up tomorrow and I was dead, what was going to happen? Like, what did I have? You know, I had this beautiful house in Hancock Park, which I had spent so much money on, like stupid light fixtures and crazy stuff. Oh my God, I wish I had that money now. And I got really sick. I had like a kidney infection that went undiagnosed, and I was literally dying. And I laid there and I had that feeling like, I don't want any of this stuff. I don't care about it. It doesn't matter to me. What do I care about? I care about my kids and I care about making good work, you know? And so I got better and I...
Talk about that for a second, because people can look at your life from the outside and say, oh, she made it. You know, she's got the career, she's got the house in Hancock Park, she's got all of the things that you're supposed to aspire to, yet you still woke up and you thought, like in Hustle and Flow, is this it? Is this all there is? You know, is this all there is for me? Is this all I have to offer?
I like that movie so much.
Yeah. You said that in one of your interviews.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot it then. Yeah. Is this it for me? That's kind of how
I feel like that, you know, every other week, honestly.
Yeah.
So
no, it's hard out there.
It's hard out there for a producer.
It's hard out there. Yeah. No, it was, I remember, okay, you want to go dark. I remember laying in bed going, what have I done? Why did I sell my last house to get this bigger house? Why did I break up with my husband? Why? You know, it was just like, I remember there were so many dark nights where I was like, yeah, this is bad. Oh, I know, but it was exacerbated by the fact that I made a movie that did not do well. It was like my first stumble, you know, in terms of... And I thought, and I can't even figure that out. You know, it was just a real crisis of faith. And, you know, I think the thing that got me through was I gotta just dust off and get back up. You know, I had my kids to take care of. I had life. I had to do shit. And so I went to my kids and I said, look, I'm going to sell this house. We're going to go back to an apartment. You know, you guys cool with that? And they're like, yeah. And they were so cool, because we went from really, really well-appointed luxury to kind of a crummy duplex back in the same neighborhood. And then I read Hustle and Flow. And I was like, boom, this is it. And then it was sort of like, actually, no, I must have read it before. I must have read it. I'm taking that back. I read it before, because then I was like, all I want to do is make good stuff. And if I sold the house, I would have money to make the movie, because this was the digital revolution. Mm-hmm. Film was almost over.
Yeah.
And then I called John and I said, do you want to go in halvesies with me? And we'll make this movie for like $500,000. And then it took him 3 months to read the script. And then he called and says, I'm making this movie for $500,000. We're going to make this movie for $8 million. This is a great movie. And I was like, okay. And then we did spend another 2 years looking for that money until he finally just said, okay, fine. I'm just going to write the check. But for us to be nimble, and I think this is really important for young producers to know, that you could get a job, you could make a movie and make a little money. Don't up your living style just yet. because the more nimble you are, the more you can back projects that you love. And that was a really good lesson for me. And I'm glad I learned it then, because I went back to that apartment. I made the movie. I actually made money on that movie. But I was like, yeah, no, I'm good. I had gotten rid of so much stuff. It was amazing. I got rid of so much stuff. I felt the weight of the stuff off of me. I felt like I was creatively
the real deal.
Juju was happening.
Oh, I believe it 100%.
It was good. I met my husband. I was getting movies made that I loved and that were my movies. So I think it's really important. I want to do it again. I'm about to do it again. Just go real nimble.
I like that. What does Stephanie Allain do to dust herself off? What's that?
It was dancing and cooking, because I quit. I'd gotten a job. I left the studio. I went to work for Henson, which is just a lost chapter, and that's just a whole thing on its own, which I refuse to talk about, and I'm legally not allowed to talk about.
But I know that it was really hard on you.
It was really hard,
and I want to talk about that.
And then that's when I jumped off, and I was like, I'm done. It doesn't matter. I'm done. I had some money then that I didn't have to work, which is how you're able to say you're done, I guess. And I said, what do I love the most? I was like, dancing. That's what I love the most, dancing and writing. I started writing again. And my son was 16, and we went to dance classes, and it was so hot. Oh, it was so great. We did video, because I had done, ballet and modern, but now we were doing like video ho dance. It was so fun.
So fun.
Oh my God.
Last time I took a hip hop class, by the way, it's been so long. I got like whiplash. I had to take like a minute because I'm just out of shape for all the cool stuff the kids are doing. It was a hot mess.
So cool. There's a beginning class over at Millennial.
That's the one I took. I took the beginner hip hop class, and it had been like a decade, and I was like, ooh, I cannot hang.
I'm going to keep going. It's so fun. It's so
fun.
Good for you.
I need to get back into it.
Anyway, I was going like 2, 3 times, 4 times a week for a long time. I was looking great. I was being a real mom. I was there. I was cooking. It was great. It was great. And then I got kind of bored. And then I got a call, and somebody said, hey, do you want to work for me? And I was like, yeah, sure. And then I read Hustle and Flow, and then that's when everything sort of turned around.
Well, you talked about how your time at Jim Henson was not necessarily the right fit for you as a person, as a producer, but how important that experience was to align with who you were and who you wanted to become. And there was a quote that you said in one of your other interviews that you said, you were trying to marry who you thought you should be with who you were. And who was that?
Well, at the time, what I meant from that comment was, it's so funny. What I meant was that I was not at the studio anymore. I wasn't doing the sort of urban movies. I had another baby. I was trying to be this other person. I was trying to be the family person. You see what I'm saying? But I wasn't. And so everything I brought to that was crazy. Like, Kermit singing Brick House, or Elmo being tortured by Mandy Patinkin of all people. You know what I mean? Like, I just made the wrong choices thinking it was like the classic thing you should never do, which is like presume to know your audience. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just know yourself.
To thine own self be true.
Yes.
Ugh, so true. So, but when you met your second husband, prior to that, you have been dating. You have been also trying to find time to be a mom and like have a career and also meet someone. Can you talk a little bit about that, being a single mom in LA and trying to find a partner?
Yeah. I mean, luckily, I told you my ex-husband's awesome, and he's always been around. And so we went from trading the kids back and forth every night for several years to a more manageable, like, I forget what they call it, 2, 5, 3. I forget. There's like a thing where you get a weekend and then you have 3 days and then you drop them and then they have the weekend and 3. Anyway, where all of a sudden I had like 5 days off. This is when I went a little crazy. But it was fun. It was a lot of fun. And I was 40 hanging out with kids that were in there.
Yeah. Did you ever feel this whole idea of ageism? Were you ever like, oh,
No,
I'm
because I
40,
look so good.
I'm this?
No.
You still look good.
No. I looked real
Saw that
good.
dancing.
It was the dancing. No, I was.
So you never get caught up in all of that, like, oh, you got to do this by this age, and I'm here, and thus I shouldn't, and this and that. Like, you never get caught up in that narrative. Good. I need to take a page out of your book.
No, because I'd already done things Caca made me from the beginning. You know what I mean? So I just had blown that up. I couldn't chase that.
Yeah.
But no, it was fun. It was fun. I dated some guys. I traveled with my ex-husband's sister all over the world. We had some really great trips. I got tattooed in Tahiti on the beach, and it was.
I like that.
It was a good wanderlust. It was a good walkabout. And then it was over.
Yeah.
And then this gorgeous man walked into my life, and I was like, wow, okay.
Yeah.
I could do that again. And we were married within 6 months.
That's amazing. And you have a kid with him as well, a child.
I don't have he brought a kid. He brought his daughter. He
Okay.
brought his daughter, and I brought my sons.
Got it. I love that. Yeah, I think that's an important part of your journey that I think people don't normally ask you about, just that other part of you, because so much of those experiences inform your taste and what you look for and the things that excite you creatively as a producer. So I think it's important to talk about. Okay, so Hustle and Flow wins an Oscar. And it wasn't Best Picture, it was original song, but again, perception. People think, oh, you win an Oscar and then this happens. Do you think that's true?
No, everybody who wins an Oscar. No, you know how it goes. Look, you look at Lugasa Jr. I mean, never worked again, pretty much. Or Adrian Brody from, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of a love curse thing. But that was fun. It was fun. It was right that it won because because the song should be the thing that is most integrated into the movie, and it was.
It was. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, look, when you want to make movies about people of color and women and people who are underrepresented, it never gets easy.
Mm-hmm. So it hasn't gotten easier at all.
No, not at all. I mean, look, the 90s was prolific because there was still movies, there was still DVD. There's a lot of reasons to make a lot of movies, especially black movies. And then in the aughts, it was all gone. And now we're kind of at a renaissance because there's so many different platforms, so many different outlets, and so many different voices that they're not just confined to comedy or urban. That
right.
It's it's queer, it's disabled, it's everything. Like,
yeah.
It's pretty amazing. But we're in a boom now, and what happens with a boom is contraction. After a boom is contraction. So this is a great time to be making content. I want to make as much as I can from my point of view, but it's not going to last forever.
Right. It always goes away. What do you think is next?
Morphs into whatever the cycle is.
What do you think is next?
I mean, we're in it now for a while with the streaming platforms.
Yeah.
And so and I just don't know how much money is going to be out there to just continue to make the sort of amount of content that's being made.
Yeah.
I'm rewatching Fleabag, which is so good.
It's amazing.
Oh my God, it's so good.
Yeah.
So good.
It's incredible that there is a time in the space for stories like that to get made. I feel like 20 years ago, I don't know if that kind of show would have had a place in the marketplace.
Or anything like Atlanta.
Yeah. So when you sold your house, backing up to when you sold your house, you started Homegrown, which is your company. Mm-hmm. What was that time like, making that leap and deciding that you were going to somehow finance this company? I don't know how you financed it, if you went and got other money or if it was just your money, but making that leap, like you said, I know we talked a little bit about the transition, but then making that decision of like, all right, this is what I'm going to do next. And
Well, I have this gift, which is once I decide, I'm a Scorpio. So
When's your birthday?
October 30th.
Oh, it's coming up.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm a Scorpio too. That's
you
why.
are? What, November?
On my last day, November 21st.
Oh, well. Once I decide, it's over. Like I just wipe the slate. I'm done,
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, well, here's the new era. What do let me search for the thing that I'm going to get excited about. you know? And I kind of never looked back except for then that's what I did. And, it was good. It was a good run. It was Hustle and Flow. It was Black Snake Moan. It was something new. And then I made this other movie, which never got released, even though it was pretty good. And then it was like, I couldn't make any movies. It was done. It was like dry again. And to be fair, I had got married and, I moved into my husband's house and, he does okay. So I wasn't really trying that hard. You know what I mean? It was like the first time in my life I was like, ooh.
You got to slow down for a minute.
Take a little nap. What's that like? I did. It was awesome. But, I did that for a couple of years. And then all of a sudden, like, you don't have product because you have to plant the seeds and watch them grow, you know? So I was like, oof, damn. Now what am I going to do? And then because I've been on the boards of a lot of these organizations, I came to understand that the film festival needed a director.
LA Film Festival.
Yeah. I was like, I can do that.
2011.
I can do that. And I did. And then I jumped in and I was like, whoa, this is very different. Very different world. I'm convinced that, there's a very funny series or movie about film festival people because oof, they are a particular type.
Special breed.
Special. So special. They're like so steeped in story. They're so special. But that was really interesting. And I really saw something that needed to happen, which is we needed to shine the spotlight on women and people of color. And so that's what I did. And it was actually one of the first festivals to start quoting like how many films are made by women. And, because I remember when they did that, they were like, how dare you reduce it to a stat? And I was like, how dare you not, sir? You know?
Yes.
It counts. And there's methodology to, determining what are the best of the best films. And so it was great. And I worked with this wonderful woman, Roya Rastigar, who was professor of, history of consciousness and specialized in festivals. And it was just a really great opportunity to flex a different muscle. And I did it for 5 years and we became profitable. It was crazy. Like we turned it around. And I also think we gave LA like something to be proud of. And also LA filmmakers to like have their, we go to Sundance, who's there? Not your neighbor, not your cousin, you know what I mean? It's like a great hometown spot. And so that was good. But then the whole time I was still producing. The real fun I had with Tina Gordon on Peoples, shooting that in Connecticut in the winter. It was so fun. We had a really good time. And then Dear White People.
Dear White People.
Yeah.
And how did that come to you?
Well, Justin was my publicist on Something New. And
he was at Paramount at the time, right? Or
he was at Focus.
Oh, okay.
He was at Paramount before, I think. He was at Focus. And he had always just been talking to me about this movie he was going to make. And I read various versions of it throughout the years. And then he went and made his little short. And my assistant at the time, Mel, saw it. And she said, did you see this? And I was like, oh, shit, I better call him. And I did. And he had the script. And I was like, how can I help? And he said, help me get it made. And I said, okay.
And what did he mean by that? Did he want financing with help?
He wanted whatever. He wanted my blessing. He wanted money. He wanted whatever. And I said to him, you know what? I can produce it. Like, I can't just help you. Like, can't do that anymore. So he was like, great. Then Gina's movie came around, and I had to do that. It was literally 2 movies going at the same time. I brought on Effie to do it, and she was there with them. And Yeah, and so then we turned in a TV show, and season 4 is about to start.
Amazing. I was at Sundance the year Dear White People premiered.
Oh, really? Yeah.
It's actually the only Sundance I've actually attended and gotten to see a bunch of movies.
Oh, really?
I had never been to Sundance, and I went as a volunteer because I was like, I just want to get access.
Right.
And that was like the year I met Ava. It was like right before she was about to blow up,
Right.
before they announced Selma and stuff. And I remember seeing that movie, and for me, it was like a game changer. I think for a lot of people, the way that story was told was just so brilliant. The genius of it, the poetry of Justin's vision. It was just such a inspiring time to have been at Sundance at that time. I think I got lucky with that being my first experience, and everything that came after, and the way that people of color and minorities and women and Lena and all these people kind of blew up after that time was just really special. So I feel very lucky that I got to just be in the ether of seeing it all happen, So now what are you up to next? I mean, you said in your email that there's been some stuff, but I don't know what stuff, and if it's good stuff that you want to talk about.
Well, lately what's been happening is we've got some really good movies that we're really close on. I made a decision a little over a year ago that I wasn't going to go back to Sundance because I really needed to sort of up the scope of what I wanted to do and what I wanted to say. And so that took a lot of planting, a lot of nurturing, a lot of watering. And those are just about ready to get plucked. All women of color stories.
Oh, I love that.
Shirley Chisholm. It's Sylvia Robinson, who recorded Rapper's Delight.
Wow.
There's just so many good stories left to tell.
Yeah.
So I'm excited because we've been spending the last year and a half really learning the TV business. Apart from Dear White People, we set up another show at the Peacock. So we're working on that. And hopefully I'm going to sign some kind of TV deal so I can really dive in and really do a major push in that direction, because I feel like now I've sort of got a handle on it.
Now you feel like you have a handle.
Now I feel
finally
like I have a handle. Finally. Exactly.
Finally. How many years later? What, 30 years? How many
30
years?
Yeah, about 30 years. Well, actually, my son is 34. So 34.
So it takes a minute.
Takes a while.
Yeah.
Take time, though. Smell the roses. Travel. Taking the kids to Hawaii for Christmas, just to hang, just to have that special time. Yeah.
What do you think creates career longevity?
I think passion for what you do. You gotta want to do it. It's too hard. If you can do something else, do it. It's too hard, and it's too amorphous in many ways. You know what I mean? Like,
yes, I do.
you're conjuring up something from nothing
all the time.
Mm-hmm. And in order to do that, you have to really, be into magic and really trust that you can make it so. And I think people don't realize about producers that there's got to be a lot of self determination, a lot of just self-worth in that you believe you can conjure things.
Gotta be a dreamer, right?
You have to be a dreamer, but it's more than dreaming, because you really do. Because you can be a dreamer and just be happy with dreaming.
Daydreaming, yeah.
But you're not a producer unless you produce. And so it's like a combination of being a dreamer and also just like a badass go-getter.
Yeah.
Because that's how you make the dream reality.
Yeah, execute the dream. That's what you got to do. Has there been, in your 34 years, a challenge for you personally that's come up time and time again? Maybe like a cycle that you've gone through in your own journey, or in your own sort of like a struggle that you've had that maybe has repeated itself time and time again. Has that ever come up for you?
I think if anything that I always still work on is, I want to say caring too much, not realizing that like not everything has to be as it should be, and just sort of relaxing into the energy that that's gotten you there and that's going to get you through it, you know?
Yeah, I do know. I struggle with it as well. It's hard not to feel like, I think because I've grown up in this age of social media and there's so much all the time, what everybody else is doing, you can see it in your face, whether or not you want it. You're seeing their press releases for their show that's getting made, or this thing that just sold, or that thing that's like, sometimes you can't keep up with all of it. As an independent producer, as somebody who's like on that grind, you know, it does feel often like, how do I sustain the dream, executing the dream, and still have these other parts of my life that I want to develop, like a family and these other goals, you know, that are also important, that inform your identity as a producer. Like, how do you manage it all? I think this industry loves to make you feel like you're never enough, like you're never doing enough, like, oh, you're just doing one thing. Oh, you finished that thing yesterday. You don't have your next thing. It's like, you can never stop and smell the roses. You know, it's not structured for that. So you really have to have the discipline to make that something that is important to you, to stop and look back and acknowledge and have the gratitude of where the path has been taking you. Right. So that's like a monologue, a little soliloquy of my own journey. But that's why I look to people like you who've been here, and I've been in LA 13 years, producing for a decade. Like, I'm still in the infancy, but I'm afraid of looking back and thinking, oh, I should have done that.
I will say, I think the other secret to longevity in this business is being flexible. Like, you know, you might want to go out for a studio job. You know, you might want to take a different look for a year or two just to see what it looks like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to. You know, sometimes like, oh shit, I need medical insurance because I want to have a baby. So I better like take this job. Like, that's what Mel did. You know, she worked as an assistant for 5 years to get that medical coverage. You know what I mean? And that's okay too, because then another door opens that you never would have seen before, you know? Mm-hmm. So I think that also sometimes independent producers feel like, and I think it's rightly felt that, you know, we do it on our own. We're out here. We don't have the, you know, support of the studio. But sometimes that's like a badge just for show in some ways, you know what I mean? Because you have so many skills. You don't have to just take the rocky road all the time. You know, you can get on the bike for a little bit, you know,
just cruise for a minute
and go, okay, that's good. And to dump the bike and get back on the trail, you know. And I think that is the story of many of the most successful producers, where they reinvent themselves. They try something different for a minute, like Paula Wagner, you know, she was an agent and then she ran MGM and then now she's an independent producer. And it's just like what your needs are, you know, and what's available and how open you are.
Very good. Very good advice. I got my therapy session.
Good.
What do you love about what you do? What do you love about producing?
There's so much I love about it. I mean, I love the process. You know, I love the journey. I love pitching. I love the script. I love casting. I love how much it's going to cost. I love where we're going to do it. I love how we're going to do it. I love doing it. I love doing it probably the least amount now. I just stop and
physical production.
Yeah, just grind, rough. You know. And I was just saying to TJ this morning, why is it that we go to work at 7 a.m. and then at 6 hours later take a lunch break and then come back and have another day ahead of us? That's crazy. I want to do it like Clint does it. I want to do like 8-hour days, 10-hour days max. It's crazy. It's so upsetting. That's okay. So then I like the editing, and then I really like the mixing and the sweetening and the music, and then I like to watch people watch it.
The whole thing.
The whole thing. Except, as I said, not standing out in the rain at 4 a.m. That I don't like as much.
No. Last question for you.
Okay.
What is your legacy that you'd like to leave behind?
Wow, nobody's asked me that. guess those are the kind of questions you get once you get a certain age. I think my legacy would be that I brought a lot of voices to the party.
Well, I think you've definitely done that.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for asking them.
Of course. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you for sharing. This has been such an honor. So thank you again for having me in your home.
Thanks for coming.
Of course.
And that's this week's episode of the show. I would love to hear what you think. Hit me up at Carolina Groppa. And hey, if you don't already, please like, rate, subscribe, review, tell a friend, tag a friend, and tell me, what do you want more of? I'm so grateful to you for doing this life thing with me. Thank you for tuning in week after week. How about we meet here again sometime soon? Until then, Beijos.